Hey folks, welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at using the True Grit Texture Supply Halftone Brushes. And I'm going to use the brushes in conjunction with the True Grit Texture Supply Halftone patterns so you can see how I apply these effects together. Now this is just the way I work, but it's just meant for informational purposes. Maybe you can absorb something from this video and you can add your own spin, because that's, after all, the fun part of being a creator. So I'll start off by making a brand new layer underneath the inks that I have. I've got a shadow on a separate layer. I've got the Hulk on a separate layer. Make a new layer underneath. And let's just go ahead and select everything outside of the Hulk. And that includes the areas between his fingers. I'm using the magic wand tool to make my selections, and I'm holding the shift key to add to my selections. If you've watched my videos in the past, that might be familiar to you. And I'll hit Shift Command I to inverse the selection. And let's establish a base color for the Hulk. I'll just go in with kind of a somewhat green, dark green color for him. And the reason why I'm using this base color to start off with is it makes the selection process and the isolation process of various colors much, much easier to deal with. For example, I know that in the classic comics, his pants are purple. So I can hit Command J, Command U, and let's just go ahead and give them a little bit of a purplish hue. And we're going to get to the halftones here in a minute, but I just need to do a little bit of a setup. All right, and then this part right here, the ruffles, those are the interior parts of his pants. Why don't we just go ahead and say that they're a little bit lighter purple. We'll put those on its own layer too. I like to be very generous with my layers, if you haven't already noticed. Eyes, let's just go ahead and give them those nice, beautiful yellow eyes. And we'll zoom in real tight. And I'll give him some pearly white teeth, because, you know, the Hulk brushes and flosses. And then we'll give him some nice red eyes. I think that should be pretty good to start off with. And maybe we'll just add a little bit of color to his hair. Okay, so we have all of our base colors and everything on its own layer. So how do we use these halftone brushes? Let's consider the simplest case. We just want to use the brush. We've got flat colors and we want to add our halftone effects. No problem. You can go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sample this green with the eyedropper tool. I'll pick a slightly darker shade. I'll consider where I want my lighting to be. I'm going to use these halftones as kind of shading, and I'm picking a darker value. And I'll go to my halftone brushes. I've already installed these. And there's just a ton of them to choose from here. Then I have to figure out how pronounced or how diminished I want this halftone brush to be. So I'm going to go with this one that looks like it's got some fairly sizable, like a fairly sizable stroke with very small dots. Let's just see what that one does. So again, on a brand new layer, what I'll do is I'll just kind of establish an area where light is not being received. And you can see those dots are painting right in. I'll put those around his nose, put those on his ears. And you would just paint this like an ordinary brush. That's the advantage of these halftone brushes. You can just literally lay them in. So now that we have that in place, at least you can understand how I'm using it here. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. I want to use these brushes, but I want to start off with my patterns because patterns fill a wider area. And I can add some highlights and shading with those Halftone brushes. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll first start off with his pants to show you what I'm talking about. This is a much smaller area to work with. So I'll command click on the image preview or the thumbnail preview of his pants, make a new layer above, and I'll go to my True Grit Texture Supply patterns here, and I'll pick, I don't know if there's a purple here. Probably not. There's probably like something that's more violet, which is fine. I'll just go ahead and use that. And then what I'll do here is I'll just drop the opacity a little bit so I can see some of that purple come through. We talked about that in the previous video. So now I want to now add some shading and give this a little bit more dimension, especially the muscles here. Now this is a more modern effect of using halftones as opposed to, you know, the way most classic comic books were done. So I'll pick kind of a dark purple, use my halftone brush tool, which I think I still have selected. And I can come back in and I can just paint like so. And you can see that that kind of creates a really neat effect. It gives it a more three-dimensional type of look to it. And so I can repeat this process by command clicking on the torn shreds that we have here. Let's just go ahead and start off with the base halftone color. I'll maybe go in with this purple, and it's too much. Hit undo. Okay. It's not my favorite choice, but I'll just work with that. And I can drop the opacity so that color comes through. Now what I can do, I can sample that color, pick a darker shade, come in with my halftone brush. And I'm just using one halftone brush here. There's so many different choices to choose from. It really boils down to how pronounced you want these effects to actually be. So the parts that are hugging his body might be a little bit darker in this example for giggles, right? And there we go. So we've got some three-dimensionality. So let's continue this very quickly with the rest of the Hulk. I'll command click the layer that contains the entire Hulk body. I'll make a brand new layer. I'll go to my halftone patterns. I'll pick a green color. I will drop the opacity of that green just so I can see the color underneath. And of course, there's all these layer style effects that you can also use if you wish. And then I'll come back now and let's add some highlights. So I'll sample this green, come back in with a lighter value, and do something like that. So we're assuming the light is coming from the left-hand side. And you can see these dots are creating that desired effect. It's pretty neat. Now, I want to share one more thing with you as I work through this. One of the neat things about this retro effect is that there is something called offset. Like if you've ever looked at an old school newspaper or magazine or comic book, sometimes the colors didn't quite line up with the inks. It's kind of considered an error, but it's kind of a neat effect. I'm just going to the layer that contains my halftones, and I'm just nudging it with the arrow tool left a few pixels. And ideally, you don't want to make it too pronounced, but I'm just kind of exaggerating this for the video. But that could be a really neat effect that you can also play with too. And then you can mix and match. We've talked about color lock, so if you go back up to your inks layer and use your color lock, if you wanted to, instead of having a black outline, you want to have a dark green outline, you can simply lock the layers there, use your brush. Now a halftone brush here, I'm not sure how you feel about that. I don't know if I really like a halftone look to it. I might go with something that's more solid, but it is an option. You do have that choice. So you'll probably see the entire character fully colored at the close of this video, but I want to thank all of you for sticking with me in this journey of building this YouTube channel. If you find value in what I'm doing here, definitely would appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't considered subscribing, maybe this is the video that makes you subscribe. There's plenty of other videos on my channel that you can check out. Have a look and let me know if you have any questions or comments. Just drop them down below and give me some ideas for upcoming videos. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.